All right, cadets, Dr. Cook here with another lecture. We're going to talk about tactical tasks. All right, so the last video about mission, we talked some about these tactical tasks and how we have terms for our methods, our tasks, our purposes, and all of these terms have some very specific meanings, not only within the Army, but a lot of them are agreed upon joint with the other forces in the United States and even with our allies in other countries. All right, that gives us clarity of meaning, and it's important that we understand what these words mean so you know what it is you're supposed to do.
Now, all of our symbols come from FM 1-02.2 military symbols. But if we look in there, there's a nice table, table 6.1, that gives us our tactical mission task symbols. So they're all together in one spot. And it's a nice table the way it lays out with the definition, the symbol itself, and then kind of an example in context around other symbols it might fit in with. So we can reference our field manual to find out exactly what all of these are and what the details are. I would highly suggest kind of bookmarking that particular table.
I'm going to talk you through a few of some of these key ones that come up and talk about some differences. So you're probably, I hope, all familiar with attack by fire and support by fire. All right. Now, the difference there, when you're attacking by fire, you are the attacking force. You're not moving, you're using your fires to engage the enemy, but you directly are trying to have an effect on the enemy to destroy them, suppress them, fix them, something that you want to do to the enemy. When you're in a support by fire position, you've maneuvered there, right? And you're providing support to another maneuver force, all right? So there's some other maneuver force that's interacting with the enemy that you're providing support to. All right, in the attack by fire position, you are the maneuver force who's interacting with the enemy directly. All right, now we talk about destroy, neutralize, and suppress. All right, when we destroy the enemy, we completely physically get rid of them to the point that they would have to completely rebuild that unit in order to have any kind of functionality back. All right, when we neutralize an enemy, that means we want to make it so that they can't interfere with a friendly mission. Okay, so some way that we can stop them from interfering with what we want to do. Now, when we suppress an enemy, all right, in that case, it's not our mission we're worried about, it's their mission. All right, suppressing an enemy is degrading them to the point that they can no longer achieve their desired enemy mission. All right, that's the big difference. Neutralize has to do with not interfering with us, and suppress is making them unable to do their own. And then destroy is just they don't exist anymore. All right, block, disrupt, fix, and turn. All right, these are effects that we want to have on the enemy, something we want to do to them. All right, so when we block them, it means we want to stop them from having an advance or moving along a certain avenue of approach. All right, they can't use that avenue of approach anymore because you've blocked it. All right, when we disrupt them, that means we want to interfere with their synchronization. All right, we want to piecemeal their attacks. They're still maybe moving, but maybe they get held up on one side, but while the other side is still advancing, and things like that, just to completely throw off their timeline and interfere with how they're executing their mission. All right, fixing the enemy though means I want to keep them in a single spot. All right. And it's tied to the terrain. All right, I want to fix them in a certain location and keep them there for some amount of time. All right, usually so we can do something else to them, like bring in another maneuver force to attack them from the flanks, or to bring in indirect fires and hold them in a position. So fixing is all about keeping them in one spot on the ground. And then a turn is we want to get them to not only not use the avenue of approach they're on, but move to another one. All right, we want to send them off in another direction and force them to go the way that we want them to go, right? So we turn them into a different route than they were originally coming down. All right, occupy, seize, secure, and retain. All right, these have to do with pieces of terrain. All right, when we occupy a piece of terrain, all right, it means we move in there and there's no opposition. All right, you just go there. All right, and you're not expecting any kind of firefight to happen. There's no one defending it. You just occupy it. All right. Now that's very different from having to seize a piece of terrain, which is when it's contested and you are going to get there through overwhelming force. All right, and you are going to take that piece of land away from someone else. All right, that's a seizure. Seize. All right. Now, securing is terrain oriented, but that's where we want to protect something. Okay. And it might not be where we are right now. And the key to secure is that we want to stop the enemy from damaging or destroying it. All right. So we want to secure that location so that they don't cause damage on it. All right. Now that might mean that we're not there. We just prevent the enemy from causing damage. Now retain is a little bit different because retain is one, we already hold it. All right. It's land that we have, and we want to keep it free from enemy occupation or use. All right. We want to physically keep the enemy off of that piece of land. All right. Now that's different. So retain has to do with whether or not the enemy comes onto it, whereas secure is whether or not they damage it. Obviously, they can damage it with fires and not physically be there. All right. So those are two different things. All right. Now isolate and clear. These are also have to do with pieces of terrain and the enemy that's on them, and what we're going to do to that enemy. All right. When we isolate it, you should think about a classic siege like medieval times, right? So we're going to seal that off and cut the enemy off from any interaction with their other enemy forces. All right. We don't want communication going outside of that. We don't want movement going outside of that. Whatever's inside of there has to stay inside of there. All right. But they can stay there. We don't necessarily have to engage with the enemy. We don't have to destroy them. They can stay there as long as they stay there. All right. We just don't want them to interact with or leave that place or anything on the outside. Now, clear is very different from that. All right. When we clear something, we want to eliminate all of the enemy that are on that. All right. So there will no longer be enemy on that piece of terrain. All right. Now, we don't necessarily have to destroy them again. They could leave. All right. We just don't want that place to have enemy forces in it anymore. All right. Wherever they go or what happens to them, it doesn't really matter. Okay, follow and assume and follow and support are two kinds of missions that second force might get given. All right, when we follow and assume, all right, that means that the second unit, the one that has that task, is prepared to continue someone else's mission if they can no longer do it, right? So if Company A is up in the lead and their mission is to, attack some objective, right? And Bravo Company's mission is to follow and assume, then they just follow along. As long as Company A is continuing the attack, Company B is just hanging out following along. All right. But if Company A gets pinned down, they no longer have enough forces to continue, or they can't do that mission anymore, then Company B is expected to move forward and take over that mission and assume that mission, whatever their task was, and take that task on as their own and move forward. Follow and support is a little bit different. So we're not waiting for someone else's mission to give them trouble to take over their mission. All right, we're going to support the lead force through the whole thing. All right, so whoever we're following, if we're in follow and support, we need to know what their mission is, but we're going to give them assistance all throughout it. All right, we're not waiting for them to get held up or fail. We're just going to support them all along the way. All right. Okay, so those were just a few of the tactical tasks, right? There are more, and you are required to know all of them to understand the symbols for all of them. I try to touch on some of the key ones that maybe you'll see more often than others. All right, and have a great day. See you in class.